And welcome back. In the wake of heated budget talks, what impact did spending cuts have on Governor Jon Corzine's approval rating? Now, according to a Fairleigh Dickinson University Public Mind poll, 40% of the voters approve of the job that the governor is doing, while 41% disapprove. That's down from 44% approval in April, 48% in January. With me now to discuss this and the budget in more detail, Peter Woolley, who is executive director of Fairleigh Dickinson University's Public Mind poll, and John Schur, who is president of New Jersey Policy Perspective, a nonpartisan organization which provides analysis on state issues. So what happened to the governor's approval rating? It seems like it's sinking. Isn't there a magic number, a 50% number that we always talk about?
Well, he really went into this legislative session with very high approval ratings. If you look back to November, January, right before his State of the State address, right before his announcement of his Turnpike plan, right, he had 2-to-1, better than a 2-to-1 rating. As soon as we started the legislative session, as soon as the Turnpike plan came out, it started sinking. So it really hasn't recovered from January. It's been going sideways, edging off. In fact, the number of people, though, who are undecided about whether they approve or disapprove has been creeping up, and I find that very interesting.
Why do you find that interesting?
I find that interesting because of the range of proposals that have come out. You know, the budget process really has so many twists and turns. There are so many ideas out there, and there's so many things to complain about that hurt some people, help others, that it would be natural to say, there's a lot of information here, I'm not quite sure, but I think.
Well, you know, the governor said all along that he would stake his entire job on trying to get this thing passed. It didn't pass, so does that necessarily mean that he's safe? Do we really care about his popularity rating or his approval rating?
Well, you know, one thing I've found out over the years is if you're the governor and there's money, you're popular. If you're governor, there's no money, there's no great way to do this. I think that he needs to stick with it. He knows he's right to try to fix the finances of New Jersey, which are a mess, and every governor should stake their job on that. But I think we're going to look back on these budget cuts and decide that they were kind of short-sighted, that Trenton's kind of patting itself on the back. Look, the budget spends less, but our needs aren't less. So I think that we're really just underinvesting in New Jersey and putting off a day of reckoning.
But what's the answer?
The answer is to have the discussion in New Jersey that we keep staying away from. What are the needs of this state? What will it cost? That means put everything on the table. Spending, taxes. You know, the governor in February said no new taxes. Well, I don't think you should rule anything out. This is a state that's only raised the gas tax once in 36 years, and now our roads are falling apart.
Right, but now's not the time to raise the gas tax.
Well, it should have been done a long time ago. There's no question about that. But
I mean,
the point is...
It is one of the 3 lowest in the entire country.
It's the 3rd lowest, that's right. But when a bridge falls down, we'll probably find out that it's too low. But the point is, I mean, Peter's right. The public doesn't give you a lot of leeway here when you're trying to fix bad problems. You don't cut the budget and the public says, what's great, you cut the budget. Instead, they say, I'm not going to get services that I need. So I think we need to have that big whole conversation in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to have, though, because, I mean, you come up against this kind of rock and a hard place. And, you know, quite frankly, when I saw this budget and kind of looked at some of the numbers, I was really shocked that we're going to borrow another nearly $4 billion. Did that surprise either of you?
Well, you know, I want to say that I think maybe you can have this discussion now, partly because of these budget cuts, but partly because if you look at the other question we often ask, which is, are we on the right track or the wrong track? It's a very high number. It's been a very high number for a long time, and that doesn't necessarily indicate dissatisfaction with the governor. It is partly, at least, a reflection of the fact that the governor himself and many other legislative leaders and people like John are saying, you're on the wrong track, something's got to be fixed here. And
well,
so in part, I think...
But wait a minute, isn't it possible to be on the right track and still be very unpopular?
Absolutely, there's no question about that.
Delivering bad news, like when he said, hey, our fiscal house is in disarray, we have to do something. As a taxpayer, I hated that. That's just horrible.
I think that's right, but I think sometimes the politicians in this state sell the public short. The public can handle a discussion about real needs and what it costs and what the trade-offs are, and the politicians keep saying they can't handle that, we can't have that conversation. I think the public is ahead of the politicians in New Jersey.
You may be right, at least in terms of what it wants
They're
to
willing
do
to talk about these things.
The borrowing, right?
Yeah.
I think the public want to be asking, in fact. And it is very hard, as John suggests, to put everything on the table because, of course, Trenton is full of people who professionally are paid to keep things off the table. But I think the public would like to have a look at a number of items on the table.
If you're going to solve a problem, you have to understand how the problem came. The governor, I don't think, is right when he says we're overspending. We're underinvesting. You know, should you borrow money to build schools? Yes, that's the kind of thing you should borrow money for. Should you have borrowed money to make up for pension payments that you decided to make? Right. Absolutely not. That's bad debt, and that's how we got into this mess.
But we're already there.
We're there all right.
You know. in terms of borrowing that kind of money?
well-
I mean, our debt service per year is, what, $3 billion?
It's high, and it eats into other spending. There's no question about that, and the governor's right to look for ways to try to fix that,
So-
but it's got to be comprehensive. It's
So
got
we
to put
have
everything
about a
on the
minute
table.
left to solve the entire budget crisis. 30 seconds for each of you. What
By the way,
do we do?
voters rejected several bond issues last year that were on the ballot, and although it was a very small turnout and probably an unusual slice of the electorate that was out there, it was something of a signal to say, you need to get things in order.
You're
Another
talking
interest-
about the stem cell and the environmental,
That's
the
right.
green.
Both voted down last November.
Yeah.
Another
No,
interesting...
one was voted up.
Well,
I thought the environmental.
That's right.
Green Acres was voted up. That's
Yeah,
right.
I think that was voted up. The stem cell was voted down. So I mean, I think it
Well-
speaks to your point about the voters really kind of do know.
We can't pretend that they're easy problems with easy solutions. We have to make sure we're leaders and we talk about everything. And if that means taxes too, let's put them on the table and have a real discussion about the future of this state.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. We'll have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it
Thanks
very
for
much.
having
If you have any ideas, topics that you would like to see discussed, please log on to my9tv.com. Click on Public Affairs. We would absolutely love to hear from you. That's it for today's show. Thank you for joining us. For My 9, I'm Harry Martin, and we see you next week on New Jersey Now.